Hey guys, hope you're all doing well. Now for today's video, I wanted to talk about something that I don't really see too many people talking about anymore. Today, I wanted to discuss the early version of Jurassic World that we never got to see. So I don't think I need to tell any of you how long and crazy the development was for the fourth Jurassic Park film. After Jurassic Park 3 ended the franchise on something of a disappointing box office return, Universal and Steven Spielberg spent over a decade trying to figure out what direction to take the next movie in. They'd abandoned their original concept for the first Jurassic Park trilogy and just kind of made their way up as they went along when it came to The Lost World and JP3. So naturally, most of their ideas for Jurassic Park 4 around this time happened to incorporate some of the stuff that was supposed to be in Jurassic Park 2 originally. However, these attempts would soon fall by the wayside after the notorious John Sayles script leak that took place in the early 2000s. Now, a very long time after that, Rick Jaffa and Amanda Silver were approached to write a screenplay for Jurassic Park 4. This movie was originally supposed to be directed by J.A. Bayona before he declined due to scheduling conflicts and needing time to prep for the film itself. He'd eventually come back around to make Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom though in 2018. Now, as far as this early version of JP4 goes, the writers were instructed by Steven Spielberg to include three central ideas. Number one, a fully functional theme park. Number two, a raptor trainer that had a close relationship with the animals. And number three, a brand new dinosaur that was bigger and badder than the T-Rex. So these writers went to work and crafted what very well could have been the franchise's fourth installment. And boy, was it ever something different. So the story of this Jurassic Park 4 starts off with a character named Vance. He was parachuting out of a helicopter with a pack of raptors on a military raid of a drug dealer's compound in Colombia. That alone should set a very different tone and describe what kind of direction the movie almost went in. In this version of the story, a lot of things happen to have been held over from the infamous John Sayles script that I talked about from the early 2000s, and the incorporation of a military man going on missions to kill drug lords with his pack of raptors is obviously taken from that old idea. Another aspect of Rick Jaffa and Amanda Silver's script would have included the antagonizing character of Whitney, who was a female manager on the corporate side of the island who constantly put up red tape that would prevent Vance's work in Jurassic Park. This woman would ultimately become Claire Dearing in the Colin Trevorrow and Derek Connolly rewrite, where she was elevated from being an antagonist that apparently was only in a couple of scenes to a protagonist whose character arc would actually be the central focus of Jurassic World. So already, we've got a couple of major changes that can be easily cited between these stories. But where things get really interesting is in the actual action that kicks off the story for Jurassic Park 4 that they were about to shoot back then, might I add. Because this movie would have featured a Chinese paleontologist who'd brought her two young sons to Jurassic Park. She'd gone there because the DNA of a dinosaur she'd recently discovered had been stolen by some unknown person. Now, this dinosaur was going to be the monstrous Malusaurus, which is a fictional creation that bears no real representation in the fossil record whatsoever. The dinosaur would have been designed to be something of a cross between a Spinosaurus and a T-Rex with a weird nasal crest. It looked more kaiju than dinosaur, but hey, it also looked really cool, so you gotta give the creature design a lot of props for making something look so interesting. Now, the production behind this movie got so far along that a map of Isla Nublar was actually designed, with a lot of areas that were marked as being major scenes that take place in the film. And it's from here that we can actually get a lot of insight into some of the action scenes that were going to be featured in the movie. From here we can gather that the two young boys were going to be named Nick and Tim, and at some point they apparently got lost and had to be picked up by a group of hunters who'd made their way up towards the volcanic part of the island. A stampede appears to take place somewhere near the, quote, T-Rex Badlands. A scene where the pteranodons would have attacked the monorail is documented here, and I don't quite understand what's going on right here, but somehow there would be a Mosasaurus attack in the middle of the jungle? Unless this is for a Moosaurus, or maybe the Malusaurus just abbreviated? I don't really know what to think about that. Another point of this film would have actually been the big differences between the raptor hunt, where the animals get released to go take on the big bad dino. Since the Malusaurus is not a genetic hybrid, and since it doesn't have any velociraptor DNA, the raptors actually do not turn on the InGen hunters in this story. From my understanding, the portrayal of the raptors in Jurassic World was a very big point that Colin Trevorrow wanted to make in the final film in order to really hammer home the idea that human beings cannot control the raptors, and that they were actually creatures of their own free will more than tamed pets. Speaking of which, this version of Jurassic Park 4 actually lists the raptor paddock as the Raptor Theater, where they would presumably have performed tricks to park guests in an attending audience. Now, even though the raptors don't turn on the humans in this version, they do somehow manage to attack a herd of stegosaurs for some unknown reason. Also, you will note that this is the version of the film where the lead raptor was named Red instead of Blue. And Red, which I've done a video previously before in the past, was designed like one of the male variants from Jurassic Park 3. Apart from that, all I know for certain is that the raptors would have been released much earlier in JP4, around the midway point in the movie in fact, which means half of it would have been the operational park, and the other half would have been the raptors looking for the Malusaurus in the jungle. Obviously, there were other things that were very different about this script, but from here on out, all we can really do is speculate without actually reading the screenplay. To put things into normal speaking terms, this was a very different version of Jurassic Park 4 that dealt with a lot of ideas that aren't really present in Jurassic World. Steven Spielberg's 3 core ideas are present in each version, but what was going on here is quite removed from what we eventually got. I like to think of this script as a blend between the John Sayles draft of JP4 and Colin Trevorrow's Jurassic World. This was a much more pro-dino weaponization story that, again, started with Vance parachuting out of a helicopter with his raptors on a mission to kill a drug lord. It may be based in a theme park and have a raptor hunt in its story in a similar vein to what Jurassic World ended up doing, but the introduction of a completely fake dinosaur that they made up for no other reason than to have something bigger than the T-Rex doesn't really sit well with me as a JP fan. When Jurassic World did that, they introduced the Indominus Rex as a meta-critique of why corporations shouldn't always go for the bigger and badder next thing. That's why the T-Rex and the Velociraptor take it down in the final act of the movie. It's a symbolic rejection of that very idea. Plus, the whole hybrid angle had a basis in previous stories that Jurassic Park had dealt with before, and it even used Michael Crichton dialogue from the novel for Dr. Henry Wu, who, by the way, was not in this version of the movie. With all that being said, I have to say that my favorite things from this script are definitely the design of the Malusaurus, the layout of Isla Nublar, which, by the way, is partially responsible for why the lagoon is in the wrong place in Fallen Kingdom, and the idea of raptors fighting stegosaurs. I don't know why, but I've always thought that would be a really cool sight to see. With all of that being said, though, I have to admit that I think that this version of the script doesn't really understand a lot of the Jurassic Park themes as well as Jurassic World does. The idea of humans and dinosaurs working together in war should always be a bad guy angle, in my opinion. It's something that people should never really do, and when you start a movie off with raptors and a guy just going to fight drug dealers, it reminds me more of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles than Jurassic Park. When Owen Grady refuses to release the Velociraptors in Jurassic World, it makes sense. He knows that they can't control them, and he knows that they're not animals that you can just tame and set out to do tricks. But this version of the script, it's kind of like, yeah, that's what the raptors are, and I don't know, just for me, doesn't really sit that well. But hey, those are all just my own thoughts of this version of Jurassic Park 4. What do all of you think about this script? And what do you think about the final version of the film that was released in 2015? Whatever your own thoughts and opinions happen to be, I'd love to hear them in the comments down below. Now before I go, I'd like to thank all of my game wardens, as well as all of my InGen executives. I'd also like to thank all of my park workers and InGen hunters as well. Guys, it seriously means the world to me that you've all continued to support me the way you do, and I never want you to ever forget that. Now I'd like to thank all of you for watching today's video, and hope you all enjoyed the content. If you feel like I deserve it, I'd appreciate the like and hope that you'll consider subscribing if you're interested in hearing from me again. I'll see you all in the next one, guys, and as always, take it easy.